Hello everyone, happy weekend. Thank you for joining me in a new video. I am so happy you're here. And a special shout out to my brand new members who got to watch this video before everybody else. I got it done just a little bit sooner than I thought I was going to be able to, and so I decided to release it a little bit earlier just for my members, for them to have a first look. So if you want to be one of those lucky ones, then there's a link below in the description box that you can click and join my special memberships for 99 cents a month. I can't always guarantee that I have a video up early for you to watch, but because I was done editing faster than I thought I was going to be, I decided it would be a special treat for them. As you can see, I am working with the Paul Rubens set today. I am still using the cold pressed Hahnemühle watercolor paper for it, but I needed to take a little bit of a break from the Daniel Smith colors, and so I decided to bring this palette out again. I've been working with it quite a bit, and as you can see, it works really well in a lot of water. It disperses beautifully and gives me a wonderful background. These colors don't have a lot of that granulating effect, and that is what was needed for what I had in mind today. If you've been with me for a while, you may recognize this type of background that I'm putting down. I like to do this when I want to do my intuitive doodling. So that is what we're going to do today. I really want to buy more of the Daniel Smith watercolors because I am looking forward to using a lot of those beautiful blues and greens. I just don't have the budget for it at the moment, so I'm gonna have to save up a little bit more and hopefully get a good deal at some point. I was trying to see if Prime had anything good on sale by Daniel Smith, but I was disappointed, and so I didn't buy actually anything on Prime Day. And just as a reminder, if you're curious as to what I'm using, everything is always listed down below in the description box with links for you to go check it out and purchase if you wish. After a couple of splashes of gold and purple, it is now dry and ready for me to doodle on. As you can see, I was contemplating whether I should go up and encircle that purple spot, but then I decided not to do that. Sometimes I have to pause and make split decisions while I am drawing the lines, and that was one of those. But generally what I do is I find areas of interest to put my lines down, and I'm sorry if I am repeating myself for those of you who have been around for a while and basically know what I'm up to when I do these paintings, but I have gained quite a few new subscribers over the last month, and so I thought maybe I should just explain my thought process one more time. And I'll probably will do it in the future too, because some of you really like to hear what I am thinking when I do these lines. If you're curious as to how I am deciding where they go, I don't have a plan at all when I start out. I look at the background and I decide which way I want to hold it, and then I just start laying down some lines. And the first one is always the hardest, and then I kind of get into a rhythm and a flow, and then the lines just start to appear. Sometimes they start out to looking a little wonky, and then I have a challenge of either fixing it somehow or integrate them a little bit better so they don't look too funky. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because somehow I ended up with these two creatures on the top half of the page, and they looked a little bit menacing in the beginning, and I wasn't sure how to fix it. As you can see, I am starting the second one here, and after I was done and I looked at it, it felt like the two of them were getting ready to get into a fight or something. It started to look like a dragon of some sort, and it felt like the two were having a standoff. And we're all about keeping it friendly over here. So after a little while, I had to step back and take a break from it. And that was partially the reason why my video was delayed, because I just couldn't figure out how to proceed. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes I start fresh, and sometimes I just need a couple of days to think about my actions and the consequences therein, and hopefully continue with the process. It wasn't quite there yet though. I knew I didn't like the top half of it, but there was still plenty for me to work on the bottom and ignore the top half for now. And so that's what I did. I still can get into my head a little bit too much when something doesn't quite turn out the way I had hoped. I'm still working on it, and to be honest, that's not a bad thing. Sometimes I decide not to continue with it and start something different, which is actually what happened here. But then the other thing that I didn't like either. So I decided I needed to come back to this one and give it another shot and just see, can I fix it to a point where I like it better. I encourage stepping away and taking a break from a piece if you get stuck. I do it all the time. I sometimes, like I said, decide I'm going to scratch this one, and then I step away from it. I do something completely different, and after a while I come back and I see it with fresh eyes, and it all looks much peachier after a while. And so if that's something that you struggle with, don't worry, just take a break and come back. But I also don't pressure myself in finishing something. If it's really something that I absolutely don't like, then I will not continue with it. And then it goes into the scrap pile. Sometimes I keep it to hopefully still use it for something else completely, or sometimes it just goes in the trash. Not everything that I do turns out great, and I just want to make sure that you know that. I know when we put these videos together, we make it seem so effortless and seamless, and that is definitely not the case. Because these watercolors don't granulate as beautifully as the Daniel Smith ones do, I feel no qualm using colored pencils to add some more shading. In fact, I prefer it this way, especially when there is not a whole lot going on in the background. I feel like the colored pencils just give it that little bit of extra. So I started shading with the colored pencils after having stepped away from it for a few days. And then I also gave this little creature some kind of wings to see if I could make it look a little bit less intimidating or less menacing. I also decided that these two weren't going to be in a standoff, but rather come together to maybe smell some flowers. So I decided to give them a few flowers to either look at or to smell. And after I put those flowers in the middle, I felt a lot better about that top section. The left guy still looked a little bit strange, but I did fix it a little bit by giving him more of a head later on. But for now, these flowers, I think, were a good addition. Oh, yeah, I also gave them some flower eyeballs as well, just to make them a little bit more cute. Are they exactly what I hoped them to look like? No. But I love when that happens. Yes, I'm aggravated in the moment and I feel like I'm a little bit lost, but if I find my way back to it and I can work on it and work it out, usually I'm okay with the way it turned out. And you know I'm okay because it made it into a video. You may have noticed that I start out with a very fine liner pen. Sometimes it's a 01, sometimes it's a 005. And when I am happy with the way it looks, I can later go in and intensify some of those lines a little bit more, just to highlighten them a little bit or give them a little bit more structure. I like to switch back and forth between materials or pens in this case when I'm working on a piece. I know when I use the colored pencils, I have to shade the background before I start with my dots, because once I put the dots down, it's a little bit harder to shade around those. So if I know that I want to shade with pencils, then I have to do that early on. Also, it helps me highlight in a few things and make things stand a little bit more in the foreground. And overall, it helps me figure out the next step. But like I said, it doesn't always happen like that. In this case, I knew I wanted to shade it in with the pencils, and so I started shading it in a little bit earlier than I probably would have in other ones, that I've done. Also, it helped me in this case because I felt stuck this whole time I was working on it. But you see me switching back and forth between the color pencils, the markers, the lines that I draw, and then I go back to shading, and there is no rhyme or reason why I do it this way. I just like to switch back and forth, and I seem to switch around a lot more when I feel like it's going nowhere. But most likely when I bring the dotting tools out, you know we're nearing the end. And I wasn't quite done with the top half yet. I knew that. I knew I was going to bring the pens back out and continue working on those ones a little bit more. But for the most part, everything else was pretty much done. And so the last bit is always putting down the little dots. I feel like it just finishes the piece and makes certain structures stand out a little bit more. So if you wait until the very end, I will show what the whole piece looks like. I managed to get it done. Against all odds, it got done. And I'm very proud of myself that I managed to do that, because boy, it did not look good in the beginning. And of course, I'm always very curious as to what you have to say. What do you see? What did you feel like where it was going? Did you have other ideas? Did you see other things? That sort of thing. So if you wouldn't mind sharing it in the comments, I would love to hear from you. And if you liked this video and you're curious as to what else I can get up to on this channel, then why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We have fun over here, and it helps me grow my channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and who knows, we might inspire each other. So with that, I'm gonna leave you, and I will see you next week.